It has been a big problem in Connecticut, but the issue of crumbling foundations is also affecting about 2,000 homeowners in central and western Massachusetts. The homes were built with contaminated concrete from a now defunct quarry in Connecticut, and Carolee McGrath sat down with homeowners to find out more about the problem.
So the basic issue is that there's a quarry in Connecticut that had a mineral in their concrete product called pyrrhotite. And what that mineral does over time, like 15 years or 20 years, is that when it's exposed to water and air, it starts to expand. And so with concrete, it expands and cracks everything around it. So essentially, concrete's very strong vertically, but when you start getting cracking like this horizontally, it eliminates the strength of concrete, which is why you see houses on TV with this problem that have, they're kind of crumbling or cracking, or the house is actually shifting dramatically. It's because the underlying concrete is faulty.
When did you find out that this was a problem that you had?
It was about maybe 4 years ago or so for us. We were actually away for a soccer tournament. My kids came back in the house. The hot water heater had flooded my basement. So we took down the walls. It was all finished. And once we took down the walls, we saw we had crumbling walls underneath. And after kind of having Liberty Mutual come out and look at it, and then an engineer came and looked at it, and they did a core test, and they found that I was the first example of it in Massachusetts that Liberty Mutual had. So they actually paid for my test and everything else to see if it was up in Massachusetts. And it turned out it obviously is, and now we found out there's several thousand houses up here that have it.
Okay, and Michelle, you're one of them as well, and you live in Munson.
I live in Munson. My husband and I built our house in 1996, and we were the general contractor, so we know where the concrete came from. We were there the day it was poured, and everything seemed fine. And then one day I was reading an article with Russ in it, and I recognized his picture, and so I read it and found out what was happening with him, and that it was centered around this one company, J.J. Motus from Connecticut, and obviously I knew we had that problem too. Went and checked our walls and said, yeah, we do have some cracking, and that didn't used to be there. And the more we checked, the more we decided we better get a structural engineer in to take a look at it. He came in and within moments said, you got to get a core test to confirm, but I can tell you just by looking at it, you have this problem.
And Lee, you are in Wales, and I know you had mentioned there's a few thousand in Massachusetts now. So tell us about your situation.
My house, I had John Susi come out and look at it because I was concerned because I had vertical cracks. And he looked at it and he said that I think you got the problem. So then I went down cellar, and I noticed down by the septic tank, not by the septic tank, but the water and inlet and everything, there started like 30-cent cracks. So then I noticed the next year they got bigger and they got bigger. So I had a core sample done, and I also had an engineer come out and tell me. But I kind of knew because I was a general contractor of my house. We put up in '94, and I think what saved it for so long is I have a wood stove in the cellar, dehumidifier going constantly, and so it's not. He told me 2 to 5 years. And so that was about 3 years ago he told me that. So now I can see it's getting worse.
Okay, and when you say 2 to 5 years, so obviously these repairs have to be done.
Yes.
You just made these repairs, and you also mentioned the insurance agent came out, but this is not being covered by
That's
insurance, correct? So how are people even managing this? And you can't even get a loan because the value is now going to drop on your houses as well, correct?
Yes, so I got 3 quotes to do it. One was $350,000. One was $405,000, and then I had this fiberglass company quoted about $265,000, which would be not concrete, just fiberglass basement. So I did go to the bank to see if they would loan me money, and the problem is they won't loan you money because they say your house isn't worth anything now. So I couldn't get a loan initially. So with a lot of back and forth with the bank, including me saying I wasn't going to pay the mortgage anymore because the house was, valueless. They finally loaned me $100,000, and then I got a personal loan for the rest of it. So now I have 3 loans on my house, essentially, until hopefully the state comes through with some type of assistance.
So let's talk about what the state potentially could do. I know Connecticut is a little bit further ahead of Massachusetts on this problem. What would you like to see the state do?
Well, Michelle and I got onto the governor's commission that studied the issue, and so we issued a report, or the commission issued a report, and basically we're trying to copy what Connecticut did. So they have $175,000 per homeowner to help replace. Obviously, as I just stated, a lot of the times it's going to be more than that, but as a homeowner, I would take, if the state will give us anything, we're also pushing for the insurance companies to actually assist homeowners, because they amended their policies years ago about when this kind of came out, it looks like, to exclude this issue completely. So that was probably my biggest shock, is finding out the insurance wasn't going to cover it, because I have
think
homeowners.
it would be anyone's shock, right? I mean, you
So-
expect, you're paying that, every month, and you're expecting that they would be covering it.
Yeah, especially something like this, because that's the most expensive part of your house. The foundation is by far the most expensive part. So that's another one of our recommendations, also to let homeowners who are buying houses know that this is an issue, so that there'd be a disclosure to people, because people moving into this area have no idea. So they might just buy a house that was built in 1990, like mine, and have no idea there might be an issue with the foundation. And then also we want to get the company down in Connecticut to stop selling the concrete up here, because there's an agreement in Connecticut not to sell it for residential down there. But up here, we don't have that agreement, so technically they can still send it up here and sell it and continue to have the problem with other houses.
So, Michelle, where are you in this process?
Well, I'm trying to advocate with Russ, and Lee and other homeowners who have joined us now. We have a group on Facebook, the Massachusetts Residents Against Crumbling Concrete. We encourage anyone who has concerns to go to our page, contact any one of us, and we'll try to help if we can. So that's kind of what I've been doing to try to deal with it, because once again, our insurance company also, about 6-8 months before we found out we had the issue, they changed our policy to only cover an abrupt collapse. And if you don't know that there's an issue that could cause an abrupt collapse and you don't mitigate it, then you're not going to be covered.
And what were you quoted to fix your foundation?
$263,000. Wow. And my husband and I are heading into retirement years soon, and we don't have the ability to go out and get a $263,000 mortgage.
And Lee, what were you quoted?
I got an estimate for $270,000, and our house is assessed for $230,000. So,
You're just not going to get the money from
No.
the bank to do that. Our local bank offered us a construction loan if we wanted to start all over. But at our age, we don't want to do that, obviously. We're not going to be able to do that.
How are you advising people who just don't have it? I mean, you're talking about a whole other house is what
Yeah,
you're being
yeah.
quoted, and who would want to wait, to see if the state is going to come through. I mean, how do you advise them?
What we've been telling homeowners is you really have to get together like Connecticut did, because if we don't get the money soon, I mean, you can wait like 3 to 5 years,
Yeah.
and then your house won't be able to be lifted,
Yeah.
and you won't fix it. So I know a lot of people are kind of waiting on the sidelines to see. A lot of people in my town and the neighboring town, for example, to see if money's happened. But if we don't push for the monies to happen, it's, your house could end up being totally worthless. And that's what I'm hoping doesn't happen to everybody. And that's really the reason I fixed mine, because I could see it was cracking in the middle of the night. We couldn't sleep at night because there was always these weird things happening. And once we knew what it was causing it, it just makes your life extremely stressful. And so I'm hoping more people come forward, and they have been. The East Long Meadow meeting we had, there's a lot, probably about 50 people showed up to that meeting. There are a lot of people, I think they're a little upset with us for kind of bringing this up, and that it's going to reduce home values. But at the end of the day, that's happened because of the concrete company and because the concrete's failing. The people that are bringing it up now, trying to get assistance, they have no choice. I mean, Michelle's not going to be able to fix it.
We had nowhere to go. We had
Yeah.
paid off our mortgage a year before we found out it happened. So we can't just hand the keys back to the
Right.
bank. We had no insurance coverage. So it just seemed like the right thing to do. I just not the kind of person to just sit there and say, oh, well, my financial life has just been ruined, and hope for the best. I had to do something.